Oh, you can. Cool. Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. I'm gonna just test some things here and get this set up because this is the first time I've actually gone live from the YouTube studio. So I'm learning, and my camera looks a little weird. I don't know if it's my light. Let's see. Let me turn this off. That makes it a lot darker. Interesting. Okay. We'll play with it. Well, welcome. If you are joining live, feel free to say hi. And if you're catching the replay, feel free to comment in the chat. Today, let's see, it's 10:58, got like 2 minutes. Yeah, might as well dive into it. Today, I wanted to do two things. One, we finally hit, after about, finding the camera on this one, after about a year and a half, we have surpassed, we being myself and my team who supports on the back end with all of the video editing, the graphics, the emails. We finally hit 500 subscribers on our YouTube channel. Woo! Which is pretty exciting. Now, it might feel like a really small, minuscule thing when you're playing in like bigger realms, but getting YouTube off of the ground and actually like starting your channel, creating the content consistently on the channel has been a very long process. So getting to this point is pretty exciting for me, at least. And I think it's something that gets to be celebrated, but also something I want to break down and talk through because it's different than I think I would have anticipated or expected. And I think a lot of the times when we're getting started with something new, it can feel really, really daunting or overwhelming. So I'm gonna adjust this real quick. See if that helps. There we go. And now we're just going to adjust the brightness in here. Bear with me, everybody. Trying to get rid of this glare. Dun, 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 dun. I think I don't like about it. Okay, that works. Okay, so let's get into all of the fun details of how we got here, the last year in review, and what we've learned. I'm gonna see. It looks like I can actually share my screen, which would be great. So that way we can talk through it. Okay, here we go. Yay! All right, so you're gonna actually get a behind the scenes look here of my channel and the analytics and the studio on the back end. So exciting. But I want to actually like talk through the last year and what we've seen, what we've changed, what we're doing differently, and how it's all worked together. But essentially in the last year is really where we've had the most growth. So when I go over to like my dashboard analytics, I think one of the things that I find really interesting and that I've actually come to really love about YouTube is the ability to see all of the data, like all of the actual real-time information of what's happening. And one of the things that we've seen is how our subscriber base has grown just in 2025. So 2025, we've grown by like 304 new subscribers based on the data, meaning like year over year. That's a 155% increase from 2024 for that same period, which I think is just like crazy. Now, the biggest things or the biggest differences when we're looking back at this are one, consistency, obviously, creating content on a more frequent and regular basis. But two, also just kind of figuring out like our rhythm, our style, the content that we actually want to be creating and how it all flows together. So we're going to bounce back and forth here a little bit. Bear with me if it's a little too much. But I want to kind of give you the context with the videos that we were creating so you can see this. And then we can also look at how the analytics and the data on the back end compares to that. So in 2024, I want to say we started creating content more consistently. It took a little while. So this first video, it says about a year from now, was when I actually started to take my YouTube channel seriously, and towards the end of 2023. So I don't have exact dates on here. Let's take a look real quick and see. No, it's just gonna tell us about 1 year ago. So October 18th, 2023 is when we started to post on YouTube. Now, here's what's really interesting. I I have tried a lot over the last year, year and a half, essentially, I guess almost 2 years now, 2023, so August 20th today, 2025. The first, like, video that we started going into content was October of 2023, so just about 2 years exactly. But this first string that you're gonna see here with all of these initial videos, I had tried working with, a few different, like, YouTube companies or agencies or creators to help me get it started because my biggest, like, hesitation or block was I hate editing videos. I don't know what content to create, and I don't know where to start, which I think is really common for anybody who's like, "Oh, I wanna start a YouTube channel," and it can feel really overwhelming. So of course, we started to get really or I started to get really reliant on, like, outsourcing everything. And you can see that too with just, like, the graphics were very inconsistent. There wasn't really, like, a cohesiveness to the brand. It was just a lot of testing. And these videos did okay. Like they didn't do terrible, right? We got some engagement, we got some views. The team who set this up obviously knew a little bit about what they were doing with like how we were creating the SEO around the content. But if we go back, because we originally started to try, and I say that about 3-4 years ago in like 2021, 2022, way back when. Before that, all of the content that I would put on here was mostly just like old client testimonials and stuff. And I was using my channel more so as like a place to save videos and content that I would share in other places. And two, we attempted to do this, but or 2022, 2021, 2022 didn't really go very far with it and stopped because it wasn't really working. We didn't really have like a rhythm or a flow to it. And then in 2023, this is when we started to hire a company to help us out. Again, started to work through some things, but it just wasn't like it wasn't something that was sustainable or a rhythm I could keep up with. Now, I think that this is actually reflected really well in the analytics when we look on the back end. So when I look at 2024, and I can only really do like a 2-year look back here. In 2024, we grew by 160 subscribers. So it wasn't really until 2024 that I started to actually grow my channel, if at all. And you'll see here, like those first few months coming out of 2023. So again, for context, we started to create these videos end of 2023, right? It was the end of the year. Our channel was like itty bitty. It barely had maybe 100 subscribers at that time. And our view count was like super duper low. So there wasn't a whole lot going on. So again, it wasn't until we started to get more committed and serious with our channel that we started to see real growth. But it was really, really slow. So 2023, we got maybe like our first 50 to 100 subscribers, and there wasn't a lot of content that was going on the channel. And obviously you can see here like an 820% increase in traffic from 2023, as well as 700% more subscribers in that year. Now, what's interesting is as the year went on, I took a huge break, as you can see, from like March through what looks like June, July. And there was just a lot going on in my personal life during this time. So I wasn't able to create as much content consistently, to really dedicate the time and research needed to grow the channel. But we were trying. We were trying. We didn't quit. We didn't give up. It was a slow burn. And this is where we started to shift into more content like you're seeing here that was focused on specific things that were coming up for clients, questions, conversations, and starting to work with different types of tools and editing software. So some of the most popular videos on my channel have been software reviews. Interestingly enough, I was really surprised by that. It wasn't actually something that we intended. It's kind of been more like happenstance. And what I've seen over the last year is as I've started to create more content, I will somewhat vary it. I tend to do a lot more research, and I talk about this in more of these videos where you can break it down more more granularly. But the content that I was creating was very much focused on like different types of things, the questions that were coming up, things that were happening with clients, and more like basic tutorials. Bear with me, y'all. We've got dogs. No. We've got dogs and an Amazon delivery happening right now, it looks like. Thank you. Okay, so it was really a hit or miss at this time, right? Like we have some videos that were getting 700 plus views, 300 views, 361, and then we had some videos that were getting more like really low amount of viewership. And we were trying to figure this out because at this point I was basically running this solo and really starting to try to figure out what works on YouTube, what works on the channel. Bear with me, dogs. It's great. Now, when we look at the actual analytics, when we look at the data, you'll notice that things started to really shift as far as like viewership around the end of 2024. And honestly, this is when I feel like I started to really figure out like my groove, my rhythm. But I think this is also when we started to have videos that were getting a lot more reach and engagement. So it took me about a year of like consistent effort to start to figure out and find my rhythm through just trial and error. And at this point, again, like we were no longer using any of the agencies or any of the companies or different like contractors or freelancers that we were using originally. And I was just trying to figure this out on my own because I was like, okay, I want to know how to make this work on YouTube. Now, what's been really cool to see is again like the consistent growth that's happening. So 2024, we started to slowly ramp up. And then in 2025, just seeing here, like we had a big spike. We had some content that went like somewhat, I wouldn't say viral, but like a little like baby viral, you know, and it's consistently grown our channel as we've been producing more and more content over the last year. So over the last year, every single week, we've created a new video that's gone out on our channel, specifically for 2025. And it's started to really pay off. One of the things that I have found to be really interesting though, is it's very rarely the video that I think is going to go viral that's actually going to like get the most traction. And it's been really surprising to test and play with different pieces of content. So I think that's one of the biggest things that looking back, I would do a lot differently, is not spending as much time like obsessing over the perfect piece of content to create. Because again, like these were simple things like how to do keyword research was a very last minute type of thing. I was like, all right, cool, I need to answer this question. I didn't really spend a whole lot of time prepping for it because it's something we talked about all of the time. But this video did really, really well when we first released it. And then some of these other ones didn't. And I was like, why? And then similarly, like our tutorial videos, how to do DNS records, they started to get more traction. And so as the year went on, I started to look at what other things can I do and what other content can I create that's obviously relevant and helpful. But we started to notice that pieces of content where we go into more specific tutorials or demos that are giving you like real tangible pieces, not just like general random stuff on the internet, but getting into like specifics started to do really well as content that was getting more into reviews. So our VDIO video is probably one of the first ones that went like semi-viral. It had about 7.4 thousand views in the last 7 months. This is again fairly recent, within like the last 6-7 months. And then again, VDIO has also done really, really well. So it's interesting for us to look at what are the topics, what are the videos that are performing really well on our channel, what are the things that we're finding people are actually clicking on and more interested in, and the growth that we've seen from that. And then of course, like different growth on different videos that some are surprising with more views, a lot with less. And then of course, our more like general testimonial videos that we've just been adding back onto our channel. Our content style. It looks like my internet might be a little on side. I'm gonna stop share. It helps a little bit. Bum, 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 bum. Come on, YouTube, you can do it. All right, I think we're back. I'm gonna have to figure out this lighting situation with live streams. I haven't quite figured it out. Okay. I'm gonna have to see how much of that came through. If this didn't record well, then what I'll end up doing is probably just create a more pre-recorded version of it so that it's not all choppy. But essentially, the biggest things that I've learned in the last year of getting to our first 500 subscribers was a lot of counterintuitive pieces. The first one was not overly obsessing about the content that we were going to create and being flexible with what I was willing to create content around, essentially. Obviously, I want it to be relevant. I want it to be specific to the people that I'm helping, but I need to also be flexible with testing different angles, different topics, different pieces, because we were, again, really surprised when we saw that some of our most popular videos were more of like review videos, tutorial videos, demonstrating specific softwares or tools. And I wouldn't think that that was normally the case. So I would say to folks who, again, are just getting started that giving yourself permission to be more flexible and fluid with the kind of content you're going to create and not being so rigid with how you create content is going to be really helpful. Because had I just stayed on like only creating this type of content, I don't know if it would have impacted my channel in the same way. So flexibility, fluidity, willingness to like test and try different things was a really, really big shift. The second part was the willingness to not have to obsess over just the analytics, not just obsess over how many subscribers we grew per video, per piece of content that we created. And that was like an interesting one to kind of work through, right? When you're first getting started, it's like, okay, it's easier to just make a lot of messy content because you don't have as many people watching. And as you start to grow or start to become a little bit more self-aware of the content that you're creating and what's landing and what's not landing. But our biggest focus has always been letting our channel grow organically. Excuse me. So most of what we've created has just been straight through YouTube. And if I do share anything, it's just through an email to my list and just letting them know, like, hey, here's your weekly update, the video that we dropped this week. So a lot of the growth that we've had, it's all just been purely through YouTube. SEO and the way that we've paired it with just search in general. And of course, it's going to be interesting to see how the world of AI continues to change that because it is changing it. It's not the same that it was back in 2020, 2021, 2022. AI is really shifting how our content gets found and how it gets like summarized. But one of the things that I have found is the content that I create that's more like tutorial based, the content that I create that's more giving context, explaining or showcasing tends to do really, really well. So I think that's one of the big things that we're going to be taking more into 2025 and into 2026 is continuing to focus not just on information that, ChatGPT can answer, but giving more nuance to our content, being able to provide more insight that you wouldn't just be able to get through like a ChatGPT response. And I think that's something that I'm finding both for myself, but also with the content that we've seen in the clienteles that we have that's working really well. I think a lot of people are starved for nuance and they're starved for personal experience, and not so much of like, here's just my personal story, but here's how I accommodate what this is and how I customize it and personalize it for how I want to use it. So I think those are some of the big things that we're looking forward to. And then finally, I think one of the other mistakes was really around trying to get everything at like grade A level professionalism before we even got anything off the ground. And I know I've talked about this before in like some of my other actual pre-recorded videos, was spending a lot of time and money on the perfect setup, the perfect background, the perfect lighting, the perfect camera, the perfect editing style, the perfect graphics. And all that really did for me was delay the process. I found that when I started to kind of like let go of needing to perfect everything, and again, easier said than done, that's when I started to find more consistency and more of a rhythm in my process versus overly fixating on needing every single video to be like studio quality or having like the perfect background or the perfect lighting, because that would always hold me up and delay starting. So biggest things, if we can summarize all of this together, very much off the cusp here on the live, mistake wise, outsourcing too soon and becoming overly reliant on other people. Not that they were like bad or wrong or anything like that, but not taking the time to actually learn the platform myself was my biggest mistake. It held me up for probably about 2 years on my channel before I started to gain traction. So I think from there, it was being willing to actually go and learn it and try it and fail and make mistakes and figure it out and like spend time digging my teeth into understanding YouTube. And all of this has been funny enough, like self-taught. So I haven't actually taken and gone through like specific courses or trainings on YouTube. It's all just been through more like experience-based learning, which is just how I learn best. The second mistake that we made and that I learned was obviously like the perfectionism. So not trying to focus on perfect content, perfect pieces to create, having more flexibility. So moving away from rigidity, meaning not just staying in one lane of this is the only content you should create for your channel and this is how you should do it, but being willing to test and being willing to experiment with different topics, different kinds of content, different styles of content, which can feel a little wonky and uncomfortable, but it does make a big difference. And oftentimes you're really surprised by what does end up doing really well. And then the third mistake, similar on the perfection piece, it was overly focused on having the perfect equipment and aesthetics versus actually creating just general quality content and the content itself, the context of the content, not just the way that it looked aesthetically. So those were some of my biggest things. Hopefully you found this helpful. I'm really, really glad that we finally surpassed our first 500 subscribers. It's been a fun journey and it's been really cool to see the year-over-year growth as our channel has continued to take off each year, and seeing that every single year it's growing by multiple hundreds of percents, both in subscribers and views and watch time. So we're edging closer now. The next goal, or the next little milestone that I want to hit, is obviously growing our channel to 1,000 subscribers and being able to continue to put out really good quality content. But I think for us, it's continuing to hone in on what are the pieces of content or the topics or the styles that we find to be most valuable to our community, to our audience. So hopefully if you're watching this, you found this helpful. If so, feel free to comment and let me know, give it a thumbs up. Otherwise, y'all, thank you so much for tuning into the first little live stream here. I appreciate you tuning in and jumping on. It's a little bit of a different experience doing it live, knowing that my video editor isn't going to edit out all of my all of my little hiccups and mistakes and interruptions, but this is real life. So here we are. All right, y'all. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next week on the next video that we drop. Bye.